The silver elevator doors slid open in the lobby of Westbrook Tower. I froze, clutching the surprise lunch I'd brought for my husband of 15 years. And there was Joel, his hand entwined with a tall brunette I recognized from his company's holiday party. His wedding ring, my grandmother's platinum band I'd had resized for him, gleamed beneath the lobby lights. They were laughing, close, intimate. His hand rested on the small of her back, the same way he used to touch me. Joel. My voice came out smaller than I meant it to. They both looked up, startled. The color drained from Joel's face. The woman's perfectly arched brows pulled together in confusion. "Who is she?" she demanded, sharp with suspicion. I stepped forward, the paper bag holding his favorite turkey club sandwich suddenly heavy in my hands. "I'm his wife." The woman dropped Joel's hand as though it had burned her. "His what?" "Melissa, I can explain," Joel stammered, panic flickering in his voice. "His wife," I repeated, my shock giving way to a strange, icy calm. "Melissa Donovan. Married to Joel for 15 years this August." I watched her expression shift as the truth sank in. Her gaze darted to Joel's left hand, the ring now gleaming like a cruel joke. "You told me you were divorced," she hissed at him. "For over a year." I laughed then, a hollow, brittle sound that echoed through the marble lobby. "That's news to me. I am Melissa Donovan, 38, creative director at Apex Marketing. I've spent the last decade building brands while the foundation of my own life was quietly collapsing beneath me. Joel and I had what I thought was a solid marriage. No children by mutual choice, but a beautiful home in Boston's South End, successful careers, and plans to retire early and see the world." The brunette stepped back, her face flushed with anger and humiliation. "I'm Gabriella. We work together in business development," she said tightly, turning to Joel. "We've been dating for 7 months. 7 months. While I was landing the Hartwell account that earned me a promotion. While we were renovating our kitchen. While we were still sharing a bed." "Gabby, please," Joel pleaded. "Let me handle this." "Handle this?" I echoed. "Like I'm some problem you can fix?" The security guard at the front desk was watching openly now. Others had started to stare. "Not here," Joel murmured, reaching for my arm. "Don't touch me." Gabriella was already backing toward the doors, shaking her head. "I'm not part of this," she said. "You lied to me, Joel, for months. Gabby, wait," he called. But she was already pushing through the revolving doors. Disappearing onto the street, Joel turned back to me, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair, the same gesture that had once made me fall for him when we were 23. "Melissa, please. Let's talk upstairs." "There's nothing to explain," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I saw everything I needed to see." I dropped the lunch bag at his feet. The sandwich spilled out onto the polished marble floor. For some reason, that tiny detail, the sourdough bread I'd carefully sliced that morning, broke something in me. 15 years, I whispered, and I find out in a lobby that my marriage is a lie. "It's not what you think," Joel said. The line every cheating husband in every movie always says. I almost laughed. "What I think," I said slowly, "is that I need to go home and pack your things." I turned and walked toward the exit, my legs somehow carrying me despite the earthquake raging inside. I could feel Joel hesitate behind me, torn between following me and chasing after Gabriella. The fact that he even had to choose told me everything. Outside, the crisp Boston spring air hit my face. I gulped it down, desperate for oxygen. My phone buzzed in my purse, Joel, no doubt. I ignored it and hailed a cab. South End. Pembroke Street, I told the driver, then leaned back and closed my eyes. 15 years of memories flashed behind my eyelids. Our harbor wedding, buying our brownstone, countless dinner parties and weekend trips. All those late nights I'd worked on campaigns while Joel said he was doing the same. Had it all been a performance? How long had he been living this double life? By the time the cab stopped in front of our house, rage had replaced the shock. I paid the driver and climbed the steps to our front door. Inside, I walked past our newly renovated kitchen, the one with the marble countertops Joel had insisted on, and went straight to the bedroom. I yanked open his closet and dragged out a suitcase. His neatly folded shirts, the expensive suits I'd helped him pick, the watches I'd gifted him for birthdays and Christmases, all of it suddenly looked like props in an elaborate lie. My phone rang again. Joel. I ignored it. I opened his nightstand drawer, searching for his passport. He usually kept it there for business trips, even though our important documents were stored in the office safe. Inside the drawer was his passport and a small velvet jewelry box I didn't recognize. My heart stuttered. Had he bought me something? Some guilty peace offering while he was sleeping with Gabrielle? I opened the box slowly. Inside was a delicate gold necklace with a pendant, an abstract design I recognized immediately. It matched the logo of his company. This wasn't for me. It was a corporate gift, or worse, something personal meant for Gabrielle. As I stared at the necklace, my phone pinged with a message. Not from Joel this time, but from an unknown number. This is Gabriel. We need to talk. He's been lying to both of us. What Joel didn't realize was that while I packed his things, I wasn't just removing him from our home. I was mentally calculating every joint asset, every password, every account we shared. By morning, he'd learn exactly how thoroughly I could dismantle the life he'd taken for granted. I didn't reply to Gabrielle right away. Part of me wanted to blame her, to channel every ounce of rage toward the woman who had been touching my husband. But her words kept echoing. He's been lying to both of us. Finally, after tossing 3 suitcases of Joel's belongings into the foyer, I typed a single reply. What do you know? Her response came quickly, not by text. Coffee tomorrow? Thinking cup on Tremont St. 10 a.m. I agreed, then silenced my phone as Joel's 15th call buzzed through. Instead, I went to our home office and powered up the computer. Joel and I had always been transparent about our finances, or so I believed. We shared passwords, accounts, a financial advisor. I logged into our bank portal. Everything looked normal at first glance, but something compelled me to dig deeper. I opened the monthly statements going back several months. That's when I saw it. Small transfers, $500 here, $1,000 there, to an account I didn't recognize. Over 7 months, the same span as his affair, nearly $30,000 had disappeared in quiet, calculated increments. The front door opened just as I was printing the statements. Joel's footsteps echoed down the hallway, his voice calling my name. Melissa, please. Let me explain. I closed the browser, slipped the papers into a folder, and walked calmly to the top of the stairs. Your things are by the door, I said evenly. Joel looked up at me, guilt and indignation warring on his face. You're throwing me out without even talking about this? What's there to talk about? I saw you with her. She confirmed you've been together for months. It's complicated, he said, climbing the stairs toward me. Gabby and I, it was a mistake. A stupid mistake. A 7-month mistake, I said flatly. While you were coming home to me every night. While we were renovating our kitchen. While we were planning our anniversary. Trip. He was close enough now that I could smell his cologne, the one I'd given him last Christmas. Got caught up in something that shouldn't have happened, he said softly. But I want to fix this. Fix us. There is no ussy anymore, I replied. And I know about the money, Joel? His face flickered. What money? The transfers. Every week. For months. Where's it going? That's for a private investment. Nothing to do with Gabby. Another lie, I said, stepping back. Take your things and go to a hotel. My lawyer will contact yours. Lawyer? He scoffed. Melissa, don't be dramatic. We can work through this. That word, dramatic, lit a fire in me. How many times had he used it to dismiss my instincts, my concerns, my feelings? Working through this would require honesty, I said coldly. Something you're clearly incapable of. I am being honest. Gabby meant nothing. Yet you told her we'd been divorced for over a year, I shot back, laughing bitterly. That's a very specific lie, Joel. Not exactly a heat-of-the-moment slip. He ran his hand through his hair again. that familiar gesture now infuriating. I said that because she was persistent. It was easier than explaining I was married but still interested. "Congratulations," I said dryly. "That's the most honest thing you've said tonight." I pointed to the suitcases. "Now get out." "This is my house too," he snapped. "I paid for half of it." "I'll buy you out or we'll sell, but I'm not leaving tonight." We stared at each other, 15 years of history suspended in that silence. I searched his face for the man I'd married, the kind, ambitious Joel who'd supported my career, nursed me through pneumonia, surprised me with weekend getaways when I was burned out. But all I saw now was a stranger, defensive, cornered, incapable of remorse. "Where am I supposed to go?" he finally asked. "I don't care." "Maybe Gabrielle's, though she didn't seem too thrilled with you either." "Don't be childish. Don't be a cheater," I countered. He stared at me for a long moment, then turned and descended the stairs. I watched as he picked up 2 of the suitcases, leaving the 3rd behind. "I'll come back for the rest," he muttered. "No, you won't," I said. "Anything left here tomorrow goes to Goodwill." With a final glare, Joel walked out, slamming the door behind him. I sank onto the top step, the adrenaline draining out of me. Our house, our beautiful, carefully curated home, suddenly felt like a museum of lies. Every room held memories now poisoned by deceit. My phone buzzed again. Not Joel this time, my friend Tara. "Hey, just checking if we're still on for brunch Sunday. Got reservations at that new place on Newberry." The normalcy in her text felt like a slap. My entire life had collapsed, and the world kept marching on. Brunch plans, weekend errands, the small, predictable things. I couldn't bring myself to answer. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I changed the locks. The 24-hour locksmith charged double for the late call. But the soft click of new tumblers felt worth every penny. Then I opened a bottle of wine, sat at the dining table, and methodically listed every account Joel and I shared. Bank accounts, credit cards, investment portfolios, the safe deposit box at Boston Federal, life insurance policies. By midnight, I'd compiled a comprehensive inventory and changed the passwords on every account I could access. Sleep was impossible, so I moved on to our most recent tax return, hunting for anything odd. That's when I found Schedule E, rental income from a condo in Back Bay I had never heard of, $20,800 a month from a property purchased 2 years earlier. I pulled up our joint investment account and found a large withdrawal around that same time. Money Joel had claimed was for a business venture. The business venture turned out to be a secret property. At dawn, I made 2 calls, first to my office for emergency personal leave, second to Patricia Winters, the best divorce attorney in Massachusetts. "I need to see you today," I told her. "It's urgent." At 9:30, I arrived at Thinking Cup half an hour early for my meeting with Gabrielle, chose a table in the back, ordered a double espresso, and waited. She walked in at 10 on the dot, polished but exhausted. The confident woman from the elevator had been replaced by someone whose mascara hadn't entirely concealed recent tears. "Thanks for meeting me," she said as she slid into the chair. "I'm not here for pleasantries," I replied. "What did you mean when you said Joel was lying to both of us?" Gabrielle took a breath. "He told me he was divorced, said his ex moved to California. He said he was selling the South End house because it had too many memories." "And you believed him? Never asked for divorce papers?" "I did," she said, reaching into her purse and handing over a document. They looked like divorce papers, case numbers, a judge's signature. My name was on them too, though the signature wasn't mine. "These are fake," I said, stunned by the level of fabrication. Gabrielle's hands trembled around her cup. "After yesterday, I dug around, called the courthouse. The case number doesn't exist. Why show me this?" I asked. "Because I think Joel is planning something bigger than an affair." She leaned forward. 2 weeks ago, he asked me to go to Bermuda with him, said he was accepting a job there, starting fresh. The blood drained from my face. "Bermuda has no extradition treaty with the U.S. for financial crimes." "Did he say what job?" I asked. "With a financial services firm." "He said the package was incredible. Company condo as a signing bonus. She hesitated. He also asked if I'd consider moving funds through my account for tax purposes. He said money laundering. Joel was planning to disappear to Bermuda and setting Gabrielle up to take the fall if it all blew up. When is this supposed to happen? I demanded. Next Friday, she said, genuinely upset. I'm not stupid, Melissa. Once I realized he wasn't divorced, I started questioning everything. That's why I'm here. I told her about the condo on our tax returns, the one in Back Bay on Marlborough Street. Her eyes widened. That's where we've been meeting, she admitted. He told me it was his bachelor pad after the divorce. The final pieces clicked into place. Joel hadn't simply had an affair. He'd been building a parallel life, complete with secret assets. What Joel didn't know was that while he checked into the Four Seasons, his two worlds were colliding in a cafe across town. By the time his room service arrived the next morning, Gabrielle and I would be meeting with federal banking investigators about suspicious international wires, transactions I'd unearthed buried in our joint tax documents after an all-night search. Patricia Winter's corner office looked over the Boston Common, but I barely noticed the view. My focus was the mountain of documents spread across her desk, bank statements, property deeds, and the falsified divorce papers. This is unusually thorough, Patricia said, examining the forged court documents. Your husband went to extraordinary lengths to create this fiction of a soon-to-be ex-husband. I wouldn't call it fiction anymore, I said, folding my hands around the truth. Patricia nodded thoughtfully. Of course. She tapped a manicured nail against the property deed obtained that morning for the Back Bay condo. This is particularly troubling. The property was purchased with marital funds but titled solely in Joel's name. Is that even legal? I asked. It's deceptive, she said, but not technically illegal, unless he concealed it during divorce proceedings. Her gaze sharpened. Which it appears he was preparing to do. Beside me, Gabrielle shifted uncomfortably. I'd invited her to the meeting after our conversation at the cafe. She'd hesitated at first, but agreed once I explained that Joel might have been setting her up for financial crimes. What about the Bermuda job? Gabrielle asked quietly. And the money he wanted me to move through my account? Patricia frowned. That suggests intent to hide assets offshore or evade taxation, possibly money laundering. Did he mention how much? He said he needed to move about $200,000 discreetly before the relocation, Gabrielle said, her voice trembling. He told me it was to avoid some complicated tax issue with his company stock options. My stomach turned. That was more than our joint savings. Where would he even get that kind of money? Patricia's tone was careful but firm. I think we should contact the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. This is far beyond a simple divorce case. The FBI? I repeated, my voice rising. Is that really necessary? Melissa, Patricia said gently, based on everything you've told me, your husband appears to be executing a highly calculated financial exit strategy. The falsified divorce papers, the hidden property, the offshore transfers, they all suggest premeditation. If he leaves the country with those assets, recovering them will be nearly impossible. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. Joel. I'd ignored him since last night, but this time, I answered and hit speaker. Melissa? His voice came through, strained but steady. Finally. We need to talk. I'm listening, I said coolly. Not like this. In person. I'm still at the hotel. Can you meet me for dinner? The Oak Room. 7 p.m., please. I glanced at Patricia, who gave a subtle nod. Fine, I said. I'll be there. After I hung up, Patricia outlined a plan. Meet him. Try to record the conversation, but Massachusetts is a two-party consent state. You'll need to tell him. Get him talking about the condo, the transfers, his plans for Bermuda. What if he denies everything? Gabrielle asked. Then we proceed with the evidence we already have. Patricia gathered the documents into a neat stack. I'll arrange a meeting with a federal investigator tomorrow. In the meantime, Melissa, secure any valuables or critical documents at home. 3 hours later, I stood in our bedroom, methodically emptying the safe. My grandmother's jewelry, both passports, our marriage certificate, insurance policies, I placed them in a bag to move to my own safe deposit box. As I cleared the last items, something about the safe's interior caught my attention. The back panel seemed too shallow. I ran my fingers along the edges and felt a small gap on the right side. When I pressed, the panel popped forward slightly, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a USB drive and a small black notebook. The notebook listed account numbers, passwords, and balances for financial institutions I'd never heard of. Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Singapore. My hands trembled as I inserted the USB into my laptop. The drive contained scanned documents, offshore, company registrations listing, Joel as the beneficial owner, wire transfer receipts, and emails between him and someone named Klaus discussing the arrangement. The total balance across all accounts, just over $3.2 million. My mind reeled. We didn't have that kind of money. Joel's job as marketing director at Levitt & Moore paid well, but not millions. My own salary as creative director was similar. We lived comfortably, yes, but nowhere near this level of wealth. Where had it come from? I called Patricia immediately and told her what I'd found. Don't touch anything else, she instructed. Take photos, then put everything back exactly as you found it. Copy the USB contents and bring them to me tomorrow, but leave the original. We don't want him to suspect a thing. By 6:30, I'd done as she advised and was dressed for dinner, a sleek black dress Joel had always loved. Not to please him this time, but to keep him relaxed, unwary. The oak room at the Four Seasons was dimly lit. Dark wood, low jazz, and quiet clinking of glassware. Joel was already there, seated at a corner table with a half-empty glass of scotch. He stood as I approached, his eyes briefly scanning my dress. You look beautiful, he said softly. Let's skip the pleasantries, I replied, sitting across from him. You wanted to talk, so talk. Joel sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I've made mistakes, Melissa. Terrible mistakes. The thing with Gabriel, it wasn't serious. Just a distraction. A 7-month distraction complete with fake divorce papers? I said sharply. He winced, shame flickering in his expression. I got in too deep. Once the lies started, I didn't know how to stop. And the money transfers? The Back Bay condo? Were those just distractions too? His expression shifted, a flash of surprise quickly smothered. The condo was an investment opportunity. I should have told you about it. Like you should have told me about the accounts in the Caymans and Singapore. For the first time, genuine alarm crossed his face. What are you talking about? I know about the money, Joel, all of it. The $3.2 million you've been hiding. His voice dropped to a harsh whisper. How did you— Does it matter? I interrupted. What matters is where that money came from. It certainly wasn't our salaries. Joel scanned the oak room nervously. This isn't the place for this conversation. Then where? Your secret condo where you meet Gabriel? Keep your voice down, I hissed. You don't understand what you're involved in, he said. Then explain it to me. He drained his scotch and ordered another, fingers tapping the glass. It's complicated. The company has been moving funds through alternative channels for tax advantages. It's technically legal, creative accounting. Embezzlement, you mean? I snapped. No, a gray area. Every firm does it. They hide millions in offshore accounts under employees' names. His second scotch arrived. He sipped before continuing. Levitt has been under pressure. The board implemented strategies to protect assets. I was asked to manage some of those strategies. The compensation was significant. So you're saying the company authorized you to stash money offshore and paid you for it? It's layered. Shell companies, management fees, he said, leaning forward. But none of that matters now. I've been offered a position at the parent company's Bermuda office. A fresh start. Come with me. I nearly choked on my water. You can't be serious. I am. Next Friday. Company housing, expense accounts, privacy. He smiled as if painting paradise. And Gabrielle. He was part of that plan? I asked. He looked uncomfortable. She was a mistake. Convenient at first. Someone who understood the business without asking too many questions. until she started asking why I wanted money run through her accounts. A precaution. Standard procedure for relocations like this. I laughed, bitter and short. Nothing about this is standard or legal, Joel. It's within regulatory guidelines, he insisted. I'm offering a way forward. A better life than Boston. Beach views. Financial security. For an absurd instant, I pictured it. The escape. The luxury. Then reality cut through. He hadn't just betrayed me emotionally, he'd betrayed our values, our integrity. If I refused, he said, coldness creeping in, he'd go alone with funds already secured in his name. Half that money is legally mine, he added. Prove otherwise. Those accounts are in my name only, he challenged. Untraceable to our marriage. You'd spend years in court and still walk away with nothing. In that moment, the man I thought I knew stood exposed, calculating, ruthless, self-serving. I affected indecision. I need time to think, I said. His face softened. Victory flickered. Take the weekend. I need an answer by Monday. There are timelines. He reached for my hand. I withdrew it. Not yet. I need space. Perfectly reasonable, he said as if he'd won. Shall we order dinner? I've lost my appetite, I replied, standing. I'll call you tomorrow. I left the restaurant and stopped the recording I'd started when I sat down. Illegal for court since Massachusetts requires two-party consent, but useful for investigators. Outside, I texted Gabrielle. Meeting successful. He admitted everything. Her reply was instant. Did he mention me? Called you convenient. Said you were part of his escape plan until you started asking questions. 3 dots. Then, I'm meeting with the FBI tomorrow at 9. Patricia arranged it. Will you be there? A cold certainty settled over me. Yes, it was time Joel faced consequences. What he didn't know was that while he savored his victory scotch, I'd already filed a tip with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network and handed preliminary evidence of his offshore accounts to investigators. By the time he ordered room service the next morning, federal agents would be quietly placing a flag on his passport. The FBI field office in Chelsea looked unremarkable from the outside, but inside, Special Agent Diana Torres led Gabrielle and me into a conference room where Patricia and 2 other agents waited. Mrs. Donovan, Miss Chun, thank you for coming in, Agent Torres said. We've reviewed the materials provided by Miss Winters and have some questions. For the next 3 hours, we walked through everything. The hidden accounts, the Back Bay condo, Joel's plan to relocate to Bermuda, and his request that Gabrielle funnel funds through her accounts. I handed over copies of the USB, contents and the photos I'd taken of the notebook from the safe. And you believe your husband was acting on behalf of his company? Agent Torres asked. That's what he claimed, I replied. He said Levitt and Moore was moving funds offshore and compensating him for managing the process. One of the other agents, Martinez, according to his badge, typed rapidly on his laptop. Levitt and Moore has been on our radar for some time. There have been discrepancies in their international filings. The question, Torres continued, is how much your husband acted under company orders versus on his own initiative. Did he name anyone who authorized the transfers? I thought back to dinner with Joel. He mentioned the board implementing certain strategies, but no specific names. Except Klaus, Gabrielle interjected. I've heard him on calls with someone named Klaus, multiple times. Agent Martinez looked up sharply. Klaus Bergman, CFO at Levitt? Possibly, Gabrielle said. Joel never mentioned a last name. The agents exchanged a look. We'll need to move fast, Torres said. If your husband plans to leave next Friday, we have 1 week to build a case. What about the money? I asked. Can it be recovered? Some of it, Torres replied. We'll request immediate freezes on identifiable accounts. Offshore recovery is trickier but not impossible. Patricia leaned forward. And my client's legal exposure? She had no knowledge of these activities. Based on current evidence, Torres assured, Mrs. Donovan appears to be another victim. But we'll need your continued cooperation. What exactly does that mean? I asked. We'd like you to maintain normal contact with your husband, Torres explained. Don't alert him to our investigation. If he mentions the accounts or his plans, document it immediately. You want me to spy on him? We want you to protect yourself, Torres said gently, and help us build a solid case. The stronger the evidence, the better the odds of recovering the funds. By the time I left the FBI office, a plan was in motion. I would text Joel saying I was still considering his offer but needed more details. Meanwhile, agents would monitor his accounts, prepare subpoenas, and build a case against both Joel and potentially Levitt and Moore's leadership. That evening, I returned home to find a delivery, 24 long-stemmed roses and a card. Forever yours. Think Bermuda, she. I placed the roses in a vase mechanically, the gesture feeling hollow after everything I'd learned. Then I texted Joel just as planned. Thinking about your offer. Need more details about the arrangement. Can we talk tomorrow? His reply came quickly. Knew you'd see reason. Breakfast at the hotel. Perfect. See you then. The next 5 days followed a precise script. I met Joel daily, asking about the Bermuda position, housing, and the move timeline. Each conversation was recorded and immediately shared with Agent Torres. Joel, believing I was on board, grew increasingly candid. He showed me photos of a beachfront condo, explained Bermuda's banking systems, even suggested which of our things to ship versus sell. The company handles everything, he said confidently over dinner Tuesday night. They're experts at these transitions. And the money? I pressed. How do we access the offshore accounts once we're there? Joel smiled indulgently. It's all arranged. New identities, new banking relationships, a clean slate. New identities? I repeated. You mean fake passports? He chuckled. Not exactly. Let's call them alternative documentation. Perfectly legal in certain jurisdictions. Each revelation buried him deeper. By Wednesday, Torres confirmed they had enough to move on Joel and senior executives at Levitt and Moore. We'll execute simultaneous warrants Friday morning, she said during our check-in. Your husband, Klaus Bergman, the works. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in weeks. The kind of rest that comes only after doing everything possible to right a terrible wrong. In the morning, I dressed carefully in a power suit I used for major client pitches. Today's presentation would be to the press, after Joel's arrest became public. At 8:15, my phone rang. It's done, Agent Torres said. We have him in custody, along with Bergman and the others. Thought you'd want to know. Relief washed over me. How did he react? Not well, Torres admitted. He demanded to call you immediately. Let me guess, he wanted to warn me to run? Actually, he accused you of betrayal. He seems to think you orchestrated the entire investigation. I laughed bitterly. I wish I could take credit, but he did this to himself. Either way, it's over, Torres said. The U.S. attorney's holding a press conference at noon. You may want to prepare a statement. Reporters will come calling. By 10 a.m., the story had broken on local news. By noon, it was national. Marketing exec and CFO arrested in $40 million offshore scheme. The sums were staggering, far beyond the $3.2 million I'd found. That had been only Joel's personal share of a far larger fraud. My phone exploded with calls and texts from friends, colleagues, family. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the live press conference streaming on my laptop. The U.S. attorney stood at a podium, flanked by FBI officials. Gabrielle's expression turned serious. Do you feel relieved? I considered the question. Relief wasn't quite the word. I feel finished, I said finally. It's like closing the last chapter of a book I never meant to write. She nodded. Closure has a strange flavor, doesn't it? Not sweet, not bitter, just quiet. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the hum of the city below filling the space between us. You know, Gabrielle said softly, sometimes I still replay it all in my head. The lies, the meetings, thinking I knew who Joel was. I keep asking myself how I missed the signs. You didn't miss them, I replied. He was good at hiding who he really was. We both believed in a version of Joel that never actually existed. Gabrielle smiled faintly. And now? Now, I said, glancing out the window at the sun reflecting off the Charles River. I finally feel like I'm living my own life. not the one someone else built around deceit. She stood and straightened her blazer. I'm proud of you, Melissa. You could have let all this destroy you. I almost did, I admitted. But surviving betrayal changes you. It sharpens you, hardens you where you need to be, and softens you where it matters. Gabrielle nodded, understanding. Coffee later? Always, I said with a smile. After she left, I walked to the window, the skyline stretching endlessly ahead. Somewhere downtown, Joel was sitting in a federal cell, his future reduced to legal filings and years behind bars. Once the thought would have filled me with anger or sorrow. Now it simply felt distant. I took a slow breath, my reflection faintly superimposed over the city, stronger, wiser, unbroken. The scars remained, but they no longer defined me. For the first time in a long time, I felt something close to peace. Relieved, mostly, I admitted. No trial means no public circus. No cross-examinations. No having to relive everything on the stand. I leaned back in my chair. 12 years? It's what he deserves. Honestly, he deserves worse. He nearly destroyed both our lives, along with hundreds of Levitt employees who lost theirs in the fallout. Speaking of which, Gabrielle said, opening her portfolio, I have the final data from the industry impact analysis you requested. We spent the next hour reviewing the aftermath of the Levitt and Moore collapse. Most employees had managed to find work elsewhere. The industry, bruised but resilient, had implemented stricter compliance measures. Life, it seemed, had moved on. As our meeting wrapped up, Gabrielle looked up from her notes. By the way, I've been meaning to ask, what happened with the South End house? Did you end up selling it? Listed it last week, I replied. 3 offers already, all above asking. That's Boston real estate for you. Have you found a new place yet? I nodded. Closed on a loft in the Seaport district yesterday. Total change of scenery. Good for you. She paused at the door, hesitating. Listen, a few of us are getting drinks after work at that new place on Summer Street. You should come. The invitation caught me off guard. Though Gabrielle and I had built a strong professional relationship, we'd kept careful boundaries outside of work. Still, I found myself smiling. Text me the details. After she left, I turned toward the window, watching clouds drift across the Boston skyline. In 6 months, I had dismantled nearly every remnant of my old life. New job, new home, new circles. The only constant had been my determination to rebuild everything on my own terms. My phone rang. It was the realtor handling the South End sale. Mrs. Donovan, great news, she said brightly. We have a full-price cash offer with no contingencies. That was fast. Boston market, she replied cheerfully. The buyers love the renovated kitchen. I smiled at the irony. The same kitchen Joel had insisted on remodeling, the project happening while he was secretly planning his escape with Gabrielle, was now securing my financial independence. Accept the offer, I said. I'm ready to close that chapter completely. That evening, I joined Gabrielle and several Sterling colleagues at a rooftop bar overlooking the harbor. The conversation flowed easily. Campaign strategies, client stories, harmless office gossip. It was refreshingly ordinary. To new beginnings. Someone toasted. Glasses clinked, the words echoing Joel's final toast before his arrest. But this time, the difference was everything. This beginning was built on integrity, not deceit, on earned success, not stolen money. Later, as the crowd thinned, Gabrielle lingered beside me. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. Do you ever miss it? The life you had before? I thought for a moment. I miss the certainty, I admitted, believing I knew what my life was and who I shared it with. But that certainty was an illusion. I'd rather live with messy truth than comfortable lies. That's profound, she said with a small smile, more like hard-won wisdom. I set my glass down. What about you? Any regrets about Joel? Not anymore, she said quietly. About being blind to what was happening? Absolutely. But you're right. We see what we want to see. Joel was good at crafting the perfect story, for both of us, I said. And now, she replied, we're writing our own stories. Much better ones. The next morning, I woke to breaking news. The former CEO of Levitt & Moore had been arrested in Bali while trying to access accounts the FBI had been tracking for months. The final piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. Scrolling through the article, I paused at a familiar name. Joel Donovan had provided key testimony leading to the arrest. His cooperation would likely reduce his sentence. A small, vindictive part of me wanted him to serve every single day of those 12 years. But another part, the stronger one, understood that the real victory wasn't in his punishment. It was in my freedom. I'd lost a husband but found myself. Lost false security but gained authenticity. The marriage that once defined me had been built on sand, but its collapse forced me to build something solid. Something mine. As I prepared for my morning presentation, a bold new campaign for a major client who had personally requested me, I realized I no longer thought of myself as Joel's betrayed wife. I was simply Melissa Donovan, creative director, leader, survivor. The final divorce decree had arrived the previous week, officially restoring my maiden name, Melissa Ann Harrington. I chose to keep Donovan professionally, not from sentiment, but ownership. That name was mine now, not because of him, but because I'd earned it. At precisely 10 a.m., my assistant ushered in the client team. I stood at the head of the conference table, surrounded by the sterling team I'd built from scratch. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, smiling, "thank you for this opportunity. Today's presentation is about transformation, taking something familiar and revealing its hidden potential." As I unveiled the campaign, I caught my reflection in the window, focused, composed, unrecognizable from the shattered woman who had once stood in a lobby confronting betrayal. This was who I was now. And I had never felt more alive. Joel had tried to escape, to reinvent himself through deceit. I had stayed, faced the wreckage head-on, and built something real from the ruins. That night, I signed the closing papers on the South End house and finalized the purchase of my Seaport loft. As I handed over the keys to the home that had once framed my marriage, I felt nothing but relief. The next chapter was entirely mine to write. What Joel never realized, sitting in his prison cell rewriting history for the prosecutors, was that his betrayal had become my freedom. While he marked the passing of his 12-year sentence, I was creating a life rooted in truth and strength, a life that could never have existed in the shadow of his lies. Proof that sometimes the deepest betrayal can become the cornerstone of the most powerful reinvention.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.